welcome to another episode of Naked Air. I'm your host, Libra. First, let me explain real quick for those of you who are tuning in for the first time this go round, what Naked Air is. Naked Air is just a personality show of me genuinely being me. You know, I want to make sure that I contribute and do my part to what I believe is something that we should just be becoming: a better people, a better society, a better you, a better me. And so what I've decided to do is to just open up some of my stories, you know, and maybe through the laughter and through the tears, you know, that we can dig deep and see, you know, what's really going on and what some of our issues are, because I've experienced a lot, and, you know, we can push things down with, you know, drinking and drugs and laughter and foolishness, right? And I'm definitely not against laughter. I'm all for that. I'm very silly myself. However, there are some deeply rooted issues that need to be talked about, and it's causing, you know, depression, bullying, suicide, self-hate, and low self-esteem. And we never deal with those issues, and in turn that's just passed down to our children, and the cycle just keeps on going. So I have created a space where like I said, through laughter and through tears, we're just going to talk about things, you know, dance a little bit, laugh a little bit, and then get serious about some issues that are just on my mind. So my whole motto is that I'll get naked so you'll get naked, and that's Naked Air. So today's topic is about adhering to your inner voice and that inner thoughts. I don't want to say listening to that inner voice, because a lot of times we do listen, we hear it, but we don't really apply it how we should. So I know definitely for me, I always used to hear God's voice or hear that inner self say something, boom, real quick, but I wouldn't act on it. And that caused me a lot of problems, a lot of heartache, a lot of pain, because I didn't listen to what God instantly in one quick second told me to do. I wanted to do it my way. So I learned things the hard way. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. A few months back, I went back home, and which is Cleveland, and I went back to, see family, just a regular visit. So with that, I have an older son, and he had got in some trouble with the law. Okay, so some things that were minor but ended up growing into bigger things. This story is definitely not about him, because I get naked. That don't mean spread other people's business, but it's about just listening how and what it can cost you, you know, or how it can help you. So when I got there, it was a few days later. You know, he had a warrant out, and he didn't go, you know, see about the warrant. So when I was there, I got a phone call, crying, upset. He had been picked up. So of course, since my son is upset and crying, that upset me too. I was trying to calm him down. You know, he was going to stay where he was for a few days and then be transported, you know, downtown. So we talked, you know, on the phone a few days, and then the transport day came. So he called me and he asked, could I come get his things, because he'll be being moved somewhere else until the court date. So when that day came, I was really, you know, shook, because I'm like, oh, not prepared for this. Nobody wants to see their 19-year-old in trouble with the law. So of course, I picked myself up, got my thoughts together, and I went down there. Now, mind you, this was really hard for me, because I had moved out of the state, and I had to come back to my home here. So I wanted to see him, and I was thinking to myself, oh, am I going to fly out of town, you know, and not even see my son? So, of course, I was upset. Well, I got the phone call, I went down there, and I went to the front desk. I asked signed in. I said I need to pick up some things, for my son. I said, is it possible that I could see him? And the lady said no. Unfortunately, visitors are only for prisoners, not somebody being just held waiting on transporter or whatever the situation, right? So I was like bummed out. So I sat down. She said, have a seat. Officer will be out and bring the stuff out. I said, okay, I have a seat, in the lobby. After about, 15 minutes, then the officer walks out and he hands me his things. They're in like a kind of a Ziploc folder type bag. So when I looked down at his things, my first thought was torn apart. I was emotional. It broke me down. I was sad because I never would have thought I'd be in this position, sitting here and picking up my son. So to look at his necklace and look at his wallet, of course, had me very emotional. Right in that moment, and I used to say something told me, when I was younger, I say something told me, but now I say God told me, because that's who I pray to, and I feel that's who whispers in my ear when I hear those things, and I've always heard them, but now I adhere to those things. So I sat down, and my first instinct was break down. Oh my God, I'm crying and I'm sad. God said, stand up, get your things together, head out the door. So years ago, what was that voice? It's just me, being cuckoo, being crazy. I got up, boom, walked up, and I was still down, walking a little slow, and God said, look up. So, I looked up and I started walking out, and as soon as I pushed the door, I see a police car ride past. Now, a few minutes before that, I had been told, because of course I tried again and asked the officer, and I had asked him, is there any way that I could see my son? So he said, no, they're long gone. Get to the door, push the door open, and look up and see a police car. Well, surely that's not him, because the officer has said they're long gone by now. God said, that's him, right? I was like, is that him? So I wiped my face and I grabbed the car keys and I ran out to the truck and I jumped in, and I didn't even realize which car it was, what it said on the side. I didn't even realize which way the car turned. And I just made a left. And see, he said, go left. So I turned and I'm behind, the police car. Next thing you know, a bus comes in front of me. A bus, and I can see the police car far up, but a bus turns in front of me. So surely I'm like, oh, I know that's not him, because a bus wouldn't get in front of me. Now I'm making frequent stops, of course, behind the bus, and I'm thinking the car is long gone. Well, I kept following the bus, because now we're on a one-way. I have nowhere else to go. So once we split into a two-way, the bus pulled over, made a stop, and then the police car. All this time I've been behind this bus, and then there's the police car. So I see these bars in the back, and I immediately thought it was somebody maybe with some braids, to the back. And I was like, well, that's not him. And then, God said, scoot up a little more. And so I drove up, and I looked over, and it was my son. It was my son, and I was like, oh my God, like, stay strong, and I love you, and you be okay. And I held up his bag. I said, I got your stuff. And the officer waved, and I really wanted to follow the car, but I didn't want the officer to say, okay, we got a crazy mom on the loose. But right there in that moment, I was so full of emotion, because in the midst of my sadness, I had joy. Because I knew that God was saying, I'm right here with you. I'm right here with him. Just listen to me. I'm right here with you, and I'm protecting you guys always. And that comforted me, because I had to think back on the steps. If I had have waited just one more second, you see how there are split seconds, split minutes. Things change. Whole life can change in 1 minute, in 1 second. So it was very important for me to be in a space that I could be obedient so that I could see him before I got on that plane. And when I sat down, get up, I got up. When I walked and my head was down, look up, I looked up. I saw the car, I pushed the door. I didn't know which way the car went, go left. I just went left. I'm just listening and I'm following the steps. God orders our steps if we just follow through once we hear it. Because in that split second, we hear that voice, that inner voice, or whatever you like to call it. And in that split second, we hear it. It's just a matter of acting on it. So I've learned how to act on that voice and trust that. So trust your inner voice and believe in that. Believe that that's real. Don't think that that's just some fluke. That's real. And those of you who have experienced it, then fortunately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So besides listening to your inner voice, which of course that's the obvious, the naked note of the day. When you are in the window and you pull those blinds down or push those curtains back and you're like, oh, look at them. What they doing in that front yard? Look at that. Oh, and who is he? And who is she? Oh, she ought to be ashamed of herself. He shouldn't have. Pause right there. And take a look in your backyard. Judge what you see in your own backyard. Handle your business. Okay? Not somebody else's business. Handle yours. Take care of what's going on. Because what you're talking about in somebody else's front yard is going on in your backyard. Okay? That you caused and don't even realize it. So, as always, email me your questions, comments, concerns to benakedair@gmail.com. Please like my Facebook page. I appreciate all of your support. And until next time, stay naked.